Leviticus chapter 13. Infectious skin diseases. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, if someone has a swelling, an eruption or a shining spot on his skin which could develop into leprosy, he must be brought to Aaron the priest or to one of the priests his sons. The priest shall examine the sore, and if the hair on the sore has turned white, and the sore appears to be deeper than the surrounding skin, then it is indeed a sore of leprosy. When the priest sees this, he shall declare that person unclean. But if the sore is white and does not appear to be deeper than the skin around it, and the hairs have not turned white, the priest is to isolate the sick person for 7 days. On the 7th day the priest shall examine him again. If he sees that the sore looks the same and has not spread on the skin, he shall isolate the sick person for another 7 days and once more examine him on the 7th day. If the sore has faded and has not spread on the skin, the priest shall declare that person clean. It was only an eczema. Let him wash his clothes and he will be clean. But if the sore spreads over the skin after the sick person has been examined by the priest and declared clean, then he must present himself again to the priest. After examining him and finding that the sore has spread over the skin, the priest must declare him unclean. It is leprosy. When a leprous disease strikes a man, he must be taken to the priest, who must examine him, and if he finds on the skin a whitish swelling which turns the hairs white, and an ulcer is forming, then it is chronic leprosy of the skin, and the priest must declare him unclean. He shall not isolate him for a time, for he is already unclean. But if the leprosy definitely spreads all over the skin, if it covers him entirely from head to foot, so far as the priest can see, then the priest must examine the sick person, and if he finds that the leprosy covers his whole body, declare the sick person clean. But as soon as an ulcer appears on him, he will be unclean. After examining the ulcer, the priest is to declare him unclean. The ulcer is leprous. But if the ulcer becomes white again, the man must go to the priest. The priest shall examine him, and if he finds that the sore has turned white, he shall declare the sick person clean. He is clean. When an inflammation appears on a person's skin, which after healing leaves a whitish swelling or a shiny spot of reddish white, that person must show himself to the priest. The priest shall examine him, and if he finds the spot deeper than the surrounding skin, and the hairs in it have turned white, he shall declare him unclean. It is a case of leprosy that has broken out in an inflammation. But if on examination the priest finds not a white hair in it, nor a deep spot on the skin, but it is dull in color, he shall isolate the sick person for 7 days. If the disease has indeed spread over the skin, he shall declare him unclean. It is a case of leprosy. But if the shiny spot remains unchanged and has not spread, then it is only the scar of an inflammation, and the priest is to declare him clean. If someone has had a burn, and on the burn an ulcer forms a shiny spot, reddish white or whitish in color, then the priest must examine it. If he finds that the hairs in that spot have turned white and it seems to be deeper than the surrounding skin, this means that leprosy has broken out in the burn. The priest shall declare the man unclean. It is a case of leprosy. If on the other hand the priest on examination does not find white hair on the shiny spot, and it is not deeper than the surrounding skin but is light in color, then the priest shall isolate him for 7 days. On the 7th day he shall examine him, and if the disease has spread on the skin, he shall declare him unclean. It is a case of leprosy. If the shiny spot is still unchanged and has not spread over the skin, but instead is dull in color, it is only an inflammation due to the burn. The priest shall declare the man clean. It is merely the scar of a burn. If a man or woman has a sore on the head or chin, the priest must examine this sore, and if it seems to be deeper than the surrounding skin, with the hair on it yellow and thin, he must declare the sick person unclean. It is a type of scab, that is to say, leprosy of the head or chin. Even examining the sore of the scab, the priest finds no spot which seems deeper than the surrounding skin, and no black hair. He shall isolate the person for 7 days. He shall examine the sore on the 7th day, and if he finds that this disease has not spread, that the hair on it is not yellow, and that the area of the scab does not seem deeper than the surrounding skin, the sick person will shave all the hair on his body except the part affected with the scab, and the priest is to isolate him again for 7 days. He must examine the scab on the 7th day, and if he finds that it has not spread over the skin, and there is no spot which seems deeper than the surrounding skin, the priest shall declare the sick person clean. After washing his clothes, he will be clean. But if after this purification the scab does indeed spread over the skin, the priest must examine him. If he finds that it has indeed spread all over the skin, it is a sign that the sick person is unclean, and there is no need to examine whether the hair is yellow. Whereas if, so far as he can see, the scab has not spread and dark hair is beginning to grow on it, it is a sign that the scab is healed. He is clean, and the priest is to declare him clean. If shiny spots break out on the skin of a man or woman, and if these spots are white, the priest must examine them. If he finds them to be a dull white, it is a rash that has broken out on the skin. The person is clean. If a man loses the hair on top of his head, this is baldness of the scalp, but the man is clean. If he loses his hair from the front of the head, this is baldness of the forehead, but the man is clean. If, however, a reddish white sore appears on the top of his head or forehead, it is a sign that leprosy has broken out. The priest must examine it, and if he finds a reddish white swelling on the head or forehead, which looks like leprosy of the skin, he is leprous, he is unclean. The priest shall indeed declare him unclean. He is suffering from leprosy of the head. A person infected with leprosy must wear torn clothing and leave his hair uncovered and loose. He must cover his upper lip and cry, "Unclean, unclean." As long as disease lasts, he will be unclean. Therefore, he must live away from others. He must live outside the camp. Mildew. When a patch of mildew appears on a piece of clothing, woolen or linen clothing, in the warp or woof of linen or wool, in leather or leather work, and if the patch in the warp or woof of the clothing or clothes, on the leather or leather work appears greenish and reddish, it is a spreading mildew to be shown to the priest. The priest must examine the patch and isolate the object for 7 days. If on the 7th day he observes that the mildew has spread in the warp or woof of the clothing, on the leather or leather work, whatever it may be, it is a case of the contagious mildew, and the object is unclean. The priest will burn this patch in the warp or woof of the clothes or clothing or leather article of any kind on which the mildew has spread. It must be destroyed by fire, because it is a case of contagious mildew. But if on examination the priest finds that the mildew has not spread on the patch in the warp or woof of the clothes or clothing, or object or leather object, whatever it may be, he is to order the object to be washed, and is to isolate it again for 7 days. After the washing, he must examine it again, and if he finds that the mildew has not changed color, even though it has not spread, the article is unclean. It must be destroyed by fire. It is completely infected. But if on examination the priest finds that the mildew has abated after washing, he is to cut it out of the clothing, wool or leather. But if the mildew reappears on the same clothing, woof or leather article, whatever it may be, this means that the mildew is spreading again, and he must destroy the article by fire. The clothing, woof or leather article, whatever it may be, from which the mildew disappears after washing, is clean after it has been washed the second time. Such is the regulation for a case of mildew in a linen, woolen clothing, in leather wear, or in woof, for judging whether it is clean or unclean. Leviticus chapter 14, cleansing from infectious skin diseases. The Lord spoke to Moses, "This shall be the regulation for the leper on the day of his purification. He shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall go outside the camp and examine him. And if the person has been healed from leprosy, the priest shall order 2 live clean birds, cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop to be brought for the one who is to be purified. The priest shall also give orders that one of the birds be slain on an earthenware pot over running water. He shall take the live bird and also the cedar wood, the scarlet yarn, and the hyssop, and he will dip them together, including the live bird, in the blood of the bird that was slain over running water. Then he will sprinkle the one to be purified of the leprosy 7 times. After that he shall declare him clean, and he shall let the live bird go free over the open fields. The person to be purified must wash his clothes and shave off all his hair and bathe himself in water, then he will be clean. After this he may enter the camp, but he must stay outside his tent for 7 days. On the 7th day he shall shave off all the hair on his head, chin, and eyebrows. He shall wash his clothes, bathe himself in water, and then he will be clean. On the 8th day he is to take 2 lambs and a yearling ewe lamb, without defect, and 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil for a grain offering, and 1 log of oil. The priest who declares him clean shall present both the man to be purified and his offerings before the Lord at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The priest will then take the first lamb and present it as a sacrifice of reparation together with the log of oil. He shall wave them before the Lord. He shall slaughter the male lamb in the holy place where they slaughter the sin offering and the burnt offering. For the sacrifice of reparation, like the sin offering, belongs to the priest. It is most holy. The priest shall then take some of the blood of the sacrifice of reparation and apply it on the lobe of the right ear of the one to be purified, on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. The priest shall take the log of oil and pour it on the palm of his own left hand. Then, dipping his right finger in it, he shall sprinkle it 7 times before the Lord. Then he is take a little of the oil that remains in the palm of his hand, and apply it on the lobe of the right ear of the man who is being purified, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot over the blood of the sacrifice of reparation. The rest of the oil which is in his palm he shall put on the head of the man who is being purified. In this way he shall perform over him the rite of atonement before the Lord. Then the priest shall offer the sacrifice for sin and perform the rite of atonement for uncleanness for the man who is being purified. After this he must slaughter the animal for the burnt offering and offer it with the grain offering on the altar. When the priest has performed the rite of atonement over him in this way, the man will be clean. If the leper is poor and cannot afford all this, he shall take only one lamb for the sacrifice of reparation to be offered with the gesture of offering in the rite of atonement. And for the grain offering he will bring only 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, a log of oil, and 2 turtle doves and 2 young pigeons, whichever is affordable, one to be used as a sacrifice for sin and the other for the burnt offering. On the 8th day he must bring them to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting before the Lord for his purification. The priest is to take the lamb for the guilt offering and the log of oil and present them before the Lord with the gesture of offering. Then he must slaughter the lamb for the sacrifice of reparation. Take some of its blood and apply it on the lobe of the right ear of the man who is being purified, on the thumb of his right hand and on the big toe of his right foot. He is to pour the oil into the palm of his left hand, and this oil he must sprinkle 7 times with the finger on his right hand before the Lord. He is to apply some of it on the lobe of the right ear of the man who is being purified, on the thumb of his right hand and on the big toe of his right foot in the place of the blood of the sacrifice of reparation. The remainder of the oil in the palm of his hand the priest must put on the head of the man who is being purified, performing the rite of atonement over him before the Lord. Of the 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, whichever is affordable, he is to offer a sin offering with one, and with the other one a burnt offering, together with a grain offering. In this way the priest hath performed before the Lord the rite of atonement over the person who is being purified. Such is the regulation concerning a person afflicted with leprosy, who cannot afford the means for his purification. Cleansing from mildew. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and said, When you come to the land of Canaan, which I am giving you as your possession, if I strike a house with mildew in the land you are to possess, the owner must come and report it to the priest. He must say, I have seen something like mildew in the house. The priest is to give orders for the house to be emptied before he goes to examine the infection. Thus nothing in the house will be declared unclean. Then the priest must go and examine the house, and if on examination he finds reddish or greenish depressions on the walls of the house that appear to be deeper than the surface of the wall, the priest is to go out of the house to the door and shut it up for 7 days. On the 7th day he shall go back again, and if on examination he finds that the infection has spread over the walls of the house, he shall give orders for the affected stones to be removed and thrown into some unclean place outside the town. Then he shall have all the inside of the house scraped, and the plaster that comes off must be emptied out into an unclean place outside the town. The stones must be replaced by new ones, and the house given a new coat of plaster. If the affection appears again and starts spreading after the stones have been removed and the house scraped and replastered, the priest is to come and examine it. If he finds that the infection has spread, it indicates that mildew is affecting the house. It is unclean. It must be pulled down, and the stones, woodwork, and all the plaster be taken to an unclean place outside the town. Anyone who enters the house while it is closed will be unclean until evening. Anyone who sleeps there must wash his clothing. Anyone who eats in that house must wash his clothing. But if the priest find, when he does come to examine the infection, that it has not spread in the house since it was plastered, he is to declare the house clean, for the infection is cured. As a sacrifice for the sin of the house, he is to take 2 birds, cedar woods, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. He shall slaughter one of the birds in an earthenware pot over running water. Then he shall take the cedar wood, the hyssop, the scarlet yarn, and the live bird, and dip them in the blood of the bird that was slaughtered in the running water, and sprinkle the house 7 times. And after purifying the house with the blood of the bird, the running water, the live bird, the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the scarlet yarn, he shall set the live bird free to fly out of the town into the open country. When the rite of atonement has been performed over the house in this way, it will be clean. Such is the regulation for all cases of leprosy, scabs, mildew of clothing and houses, swellings, eruptions, and shiny spots. It defines the cases when things are unclean and when they are clean. Such is the regulation on leprosy. Psalm 46. The Lord is our stronghold. God is our strength and protection, and ever-present help in affliction. We will not fear, therefore, though the earth be shaken and the mountains plunge into the deepest ocean, though its waters foam and roar and the mountains tremble at its surging. The Lord of hosts is with us, the God of Jacob our stronghold. There is a river whose streams bring joy to the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within, the city cannot fall, for God's help is upon her at the break of day. Kingdoms totter, nations are in turmoil. At the sound of his voice, the earth melts away. The Lord of hosts is with us, the God of Jacob our stronghold. Come see the works of the Lord, the marvelous things he has done in the world. He has put an end to wars, broken the bows and splintered the spears, set the shields and chariots afire. Be still and know that I am God. I am supreme among the nations, exalted over the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us, the God of Jacob, our stronghold. Matthew chapter 27, verse 27 to 50. The way of the cross. The Roman soldiers took Jesus into the palace of the governor, and the whole troop gathered round him. They stripped him and dressed him in a purple cloak. Then, twisting a crown of thorns, they forced it onto his head and placed the reed in his right hand. They knelt before Jesus and mocked him, saying, "Long live the King of Jews." They spat on him, took the reed from his hand, and struck him on the head with it. When they had finished mocking him, they pulled the purple cloak off and dressed him in his own clothes again and led him out to be crucified. On the way they met a man from Cyrene called Simon and forced him to carry the cross of Jesus. When they reached the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull, they offered him wine mixed with gall. Jesus tasted it but would not drink it. There they crucified and divided his clothes among themselves, casting lots to decide what each should take. Then they sat down to guard him. The statement of his offense was displayed above his head, and it read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." They also crucified 2 bandits with him, one on his right and one on his left. People passing by shook their heads and insulted him, saying, "Aha, so you will destroy the temple and build it up again in 3 days. Now save yourself and come down from the cross if you are the Son of God." In the same way, the chief priests, the elders, and the teachers of the law made fun of him. They said, "The man who saved others cannot save himself. Is he not the King of Israel? Let him now come down from the cross and we will believe him. He trusted in God. Let God rescue him if he wants to. Did he not say, 'I am the Son of God'?" Even the bandits who were crucified with him insulted him. The death of Jesus. From the 6th hour, darkness fell over the whole land until the 9th hour. At about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When they heard this, some of the bystanders said, He is calling for Elijah. And one of them ran, took a sponge, and soaked it in vinegar, and putting it on a reed, gave him to drink. Others said, Let us see whether Elijah comes to his rescue. Then Jesus cried out again in a loud voice and gave up his spirit.